What is going on, everybody? My name's Chris. Welcome to Bourbinsane. We're back today and we are going to be drinking some very unique, very cool whiskeys. We're drinking Heaven's Door. Now, Heaven's Door is actually a collaboration between the company and Bob Dylan. So this is actually Bob Dylan's whiskey. He's kind of the brainchild of the whole thing. Each bottle is very unique in its own way, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But Bob Dylan had an influence on a lot of things with this bottle. So it's, first of all, what the whiskey actually is, what goes into the bottle, how they age it, things like that. And then also the design. So like each bottle design has Iron Gate artwork on it, and that comes right from Bob Dylan himself. He actually came up with the designs for that. So that's really cool. Also, it's called Heaven's Door. That obviously pays homage to his song, Knock It on Heaven's Door. So pretty cool. Bob Dylan has his own whiskey out, and some celebrities are starting to branch into spirits more. So I think it's really cool. These are the three base expressions. So we've got a Tennessee straight bourbon, we have a double barrel, and then we have a rye, very unique rye. So we'll talk about each of them. Let's get into the first one. This is Heaven's Door, Tennessee straight bourbon whiskey. Now, they say this is around an 8-year aged whiskey. It is sourced. They do not disclose where it's from. They don't disclose mash, but we do know it's a Tennessee whiskey, so most likely it's going to be Brown-Forman or George Dickel. We'll see if we can figure it out on the nose and the taste when we go into it. But 8 years, they say, 7 to 8 years. They don't talk about mash bill, but they do say it contains around 30% non-dominant grain. So, that's going to be rye and barley, most likely are going to be the two non-dominant grains. So most likely it's about 30% with those two, leaving about 70% corn. So looking at color first, it's a honey color. Golden honey, not dark, not super light. This does come in at 45%, so 90 proof. It just smells like a classic bourbon on the nose. It really does. Not too much of a Tennessee profile. Maybe I can pick up a little bit of that, I want to say a little bit of that Flintstone vitamin note. I recently reviewed the George Dickel 13-year bottled in bond, and that has a very heavy, chalky Flintstone vitamin note. I could kind of see that on this as well. So remember, being a Tennessee whiskey, they do charcoal mellow this at the distillery. So once the distillate's made, they filter it through charcoal, and then they put it into the barrels to be aged. So the mellowing happens before the whiskey is aged. Nice caramel, vanilla sweetness, though. Not sharp at all. I mean, it smells like it smells about that age, 6 to 8 years. Let's give it a sip here. Cheers. If I was guessing, I would say this is not Brown-Forman. I'd say this is probably George Dickel juice. That note's coming through. Heaven's Door, they do have plans to open their own distillery actually later in 2019. So we'll see if that ends up happening. I know they have plans for that, so they are probably going to want to start producing their own stuff pretty soon, which is really cool. I mean, it just tastes like a solid pour, honestly. Solid bourbon, nice vanilla caramel, sweetness, a little bit of brown sugar. Honestly, like a little bit of maple comes through on this too. Could be just my brain telling me that with the charcoal filtering. A lot of times, like with Jack Daniels, things like that, I'll pick up, honey and some of that maple note coming with that maple sweetness. Overall, solid pour though. Now, the straight Tennessee bourbon does come in right around the $45 price range. So not terribly priced for what would be considered like a craft distillery. They obviously do distribute more than some other craft distilleries throughout the country, but not a bad price really for what you're getting with the age and the flavor profiles that come through. All right, moving on to sample number 2. This is the Heaven's Door, and this is the double barrel. Now, what they do is this is actually a blend of 3 different whiskeys, undisclosed again where they come from, what they are, what the mash bills are, but blend of 3 different whiskeys, and then after it has come to full maturation, which is probably again around the 7-year, maybe 8-year age range, they put it into another barrel for an additional year. So a new charred, unused barrel for another year to just double barrel finish it. So other companies are doing this as well, things like Woodford Reserve. So honestly, if this is, hypothetically a Brown-Forman product, this should be very similar to the Woodford Double Oaked. So it'll be kind of a cool experiment to find out, but color just about identical as sample number 1 here. Not much different. This is bumped up in proof though, up to 100 proof, so that's very nice. Initially on the nose, with this compared to the first sample, you get a lot more barrel spice. Smells like more barrel char, barrel spice in general. I'm curious to know what the blend of the 3 whiskeys were that they did include in this mash. What the mash bills were on those 3 whiskeys. I like that a lot more than sample number 1 personally. It's much more rounded. Not only is the bump up in proof up to 100, it does make a big difference for me personally. I really like that proof in general. A lot of us do. But the palate, the mouthfeel on the palate, it coats the mouth very nice. It leaves a more creamy taste on the palate. Much smoother. The actual flavors themselves are not that different. It's just a little more spicy. The proof is amped up, so it gives you a little more of that hug going down. And the mouthfeel, I much prefer the mouthfeel on number 2 to number 1. Creamy caramel, creamy vanilla, almost like a vanilla ice cream or a pudding almost. Very nice. That double barrel really does something nice to this. Again, this is coming in right around $45, $50. So again, not bad price. Between the two, I am definitely leaning towards the double barrel myself. All right, finally on to sample number 3. This is their rye expression. Now, this whiskey is Heaven's Door straight rye whiskey finished in, and I can't pronounce this, Vodges oak barrels. Sorry if I butchered that. All I know is the barrels come from France. That is the area of France, Vodges or whatever you call that, from France. And they are actually previous cigar barrels. So very interesting. I'm curious to see if these cigar notes and flavors are going to come through on this. But what they do is they let them air dry out in France, in that city, or whatever you'll call that, province, whatever you'll call that. And then they age the rye whiskey additionally in this. So pretty cool, pretty unique, and I'm curious to see if that cigar, barrel has any influence on this. We'll find out. This is 46%, so just a little bit higher than the bourbon. Immediately on the nose, it's completely different. It definitely smells a lot more earthy, a lot more grassy, kind of what you expect from rye. A lot of orange peel in this. A lot of orange peel. Citrus brine, so think like lemon peel, orange peel. The brininess, or the rind of the citrus. That bitter, that bitter rind part of the citrus. Lemon, lime, and orange. That's what I'm getting on it. Peppery as well. Again, mash bill on this is undisclosed. We don't know how much rye it is, if it's barely legal or not. So let's give it a sip. Cheers, guys. It's definitely a unique rye. Most definitely. But I don't mind it. I do not mind that rye at all. Very unique flavor. Coats the palate very nice again at 46 proof. I think whatever they're doing to these barrels, it's actually leaving my mouth salivating a little bit right now. Salivating, wanting another sip. Whatever they're doing to these barrels over in France with just however long they let them air dry, or previously holding the cigar contents or whatever they did with it, it's working really well. I really like that flavor profile. Everything I described on the nose does come through on the palate well. That citrus, the rind of the citrus. Orange, lemongrass, but it leaves a nice juiciness in the back of the palate. A nice juiciness, which is very surprising. Usually with rye whiskeys, I'll get almost a drying note in the back of the palate. But this is like a juiciness. It leaves my mouth just salivating. Like my mouth is watering, wanting more of this. Very interesting. It's usually the complete opposite with rye. I could see this being a really, really good cocktail rye. Just because of the extra layer of sweetness, I think this would work extremely well in cocktails. Unfortunately, this does come in at about $70 to $80 for this expression, from what I found. I have only seen maybe Heaven's Door one time, and I think it was just the normal bourbon expression here in Michigan. So the one downside to the rye is going to be the price point. But the other two, very affordable, $50 for both. Again, me personally, I think I would lean towards that double barrel. It's going to depend on the person, you know, if you like that flavor, that Tennessee whiskey flavor profile, you'll probably be okay with any of these, honestly, especially the double barrel, the regular bourbon, and at a good price. So Heaven's Door is worth a look at, and when they do start producing their own product, I'll be very curious to see how the whiskeys, if they stay true to the flavor profiles, or if they'll change or evolve. And I hope they don't change what's going on with this rye, because I am quite a fan of this. It's very interesting, very unique, but I really like it. Thank you guys so much for watching the review today. If you like these types of videos where I review a whole distillery line, fortunately these were sent to me, so I was able to review them for you all. Of course, I told them I'd be honest in the review, as always. But I was impressed by most of these overall, so they had nothing to worry about. Let me know if you like these, where I talk about multiple expressions in one video. Also, if any of you had Heaven's Door before, which one of these expressions is your favorite? I'm curious to know, and anyone who's had the rye, I definitely want to know what you think of that rye, because that is very unique to me. If you haven't already picked up one of my challenge coins, please do go out and get one. Shoot me an email, bourbinsane@gmail.com. Also, I do have a Patreon page. New perks just added, so go check that out right now, patreon.com/bourbinsane. Thank you guys so much for joining me for the review today. Stay insane, everyone.